Welcome back to our beloved podcast. Today, we're diving deep into the riveting world of ecology, specifically focusing on the interactions within grassland ecosystems. I'm your host, and I can't wait to explore this topic with you. Joining me today is our expert guest, Dr. Emily Carter, an ecologist with over a decade of field experience. Welcome, Emily.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to unpack the complexities of ecology today.
Let's jump right in. So, to start off, could you explain what ecology actually is?
Absolutely. Ecology is the study of how living organisms, including plants, animals, and microorganisms, interact with each other and their environment. This can involve everything from how species share resources to how they compete for survival.
And speaking of interactions, let's talk about the fundamental roles organisms play in these ecosystems. We often hear terms like autotrophs and heterotrophs. What do they mean?
Great question. Autotrophs are organisms that can produce their own food. Think of plants, which use sunlight to create energy through a process called photosynthesis. On the other hand, heterotrophs cannot make their own food and rely on consuming other organisms. That group includes herbivores, carnivores, and omnivores. So whether they munch on grass or snack on a rabbit, they all play a crucial role in their ecosystems.
Love that. So it's like a big dinner party in nature. Now let's talk more about those dinner guests, particularly in terms of food chains and food webs. What's the difference?
A food chain is a linear sequence that describes who eats whom in an ecosystem. It usually starts with a producer like grass, then moves up to primary consumers like ladybirds, and then secondary consumers like blackbirds and so forth. A food web, on the other hand, is a more intricate network that shows how various food chains interconnect. It highlights the complexity of these relationships. The more connections, the healthier the ecosystem.
So fascinating. And within these food chains, we also have something called trophic levels, correct?
Exactly. Trophic levels describe the positions that organisms occupy in the food chain. The first level is the producers, then you have the primary consumers, followed by secondary and tertiary consumers. Each level represents the flow of energy through the ecosystem, and as you move up, there's less energy available. It's akin to climbing a staircase. The higher you go, the fewer people you find.
That's a great analogy. Now let's shed some light on the factors that influence these populations within an ecosystem. We categorize these factors into abiotic and biotic, right?
Correct. Abiotic factors are non-living components like water, soil, temperature, and light. They have a substantial impact on what can thrive in an ecosystem. For instance, if the soil is too acidic, certain plants won't grow well, which in turn affects the herbivores that depend on those plants. Biotic factors, on the other hand, involve living elements, such as competition for resources, predation, and symbiosis.
Let's delve into those biotic factors a bit more. You mentioned competition. Can you elaborate on the types of competition?
Absolutely. There's contest competition, where organisms directly compete for scarce resources, often leading to one winner taking all. Then there's scramble competition, where multiple organisms compete for the same resource, but instead of one entity winning everything, they share what's available, albeit not always evenly. This process is vital for promoting evolutionary changes.
And what about predation? That seems like a cutthroat world out there.
Oh, it truly is. In predation, one organism, the predator, catches and eats another, the prey. This relationship helps regulate population sizes within ecosystems, acting like a natural balance scale. For example, too many rabbits could lead to overgrazing, but if a fox population is healthy, they can help keep rabbit numbers in check.
Such a natural balance. And how does this balance relate to conservation efforts?
That's an important connection. Conservation is all about protecting these ecosystems and ensuring that the various resources we rely on are sustainable for future generations. When we understand ecological relationships and the value of biodiversity, we stand a much better chance of conserving these delicate balances.
Speaking of biodiversity, what exactly does that mean and why is it crucial?
Biodiversity refers to the variety of life within an ecosystem, encompassing different species of flora and fauna. High biodiversity is essential because it increases resilience, meaning ecosystems can better withstand stressors like climate change or disease. Each species has its unique role, and when we lose one, it can have a cascading effect on others.
That's a vital point. If one species is lost, it's not just one entity gone, it's a ripple effect. Now let's talk about the impact of human activity on these ecosystems.
Human activity introduces several threats. Pollution, habitat destruction, and climate change are all detrimental to ecological balance. Pollution can harm species directly and disrupt the intricate relationships between them. Deforestation reduces habitats and biodiversity, leading to more pronounced consequences for the remaining flora and fauna.
It's sobering to think about, but critically important. As we wrap up our discussion, what are the key takeaways you want our listeners to remember about ecology?
Firstly, the interconnectedness of life. Each organism plays a role, and the health of our ecosystems depends on their interactions. Secondly, understanding the delicate balance of biotic and abiotic factors can help us appreciate conservation efforts. Finally, biodiversity isn't just a buzzword. It's the backbone of resilient ecosystems. Protecting it ensures a sustainable future for all forms of life.
That's beautifully said. Thank you, Emily, for your insights today, and thank you to our listeners for joining us as we explored the world of ecology. Remember, the more we learn about our ecosystems, the better stewards we can be for our planet.